For the News First team, I'm Senitha Senanayaka. Before we take a look at the stories for the day, let's take a look at the headlines. Danushka Gunatilaka denied bail. 50 detainees who escaped from the Kandakadu Rehab Centre re-apprehended. 6 billion rupees worth of heroin seized in joint operation on the high seas off Hambantota. Russia attacks Ukraine's electricity grids. Sri Lanka cricket team returns after World Cup camping. On to those stories in detail. Today marks the ill full moon Poya day.
It was on an ill full moon Poya day that the first Buddhist missionary exercise of 60 Arahat was launched. The three Jatila brothers also entered the Buddhist order on a day such as today. The passing away of one of Lord Buddha's chief disciples, Sariputta, and the announcement of the future Buddhahood of Maitreya Bodhisattva also occurred on Il Poya day. This is the last Poya of the Vassana rainy season. With the end of the Il Poya, the Katina Pinkama also should end.
Several religious rituals centering Amisa and Pratipatti Pujas were held across the country today. The Siri Sadahamsita Dhamma sermon organised by the opposition leader's office was held this morning at the historic Tantirimale Rajamahavihara. Opposition leader Sajit Premadasa participated in the event. Meanwhile, a Bodhi Puja was held at the Shakya Malake opposite the Capital Maharaja Group head office this morning. The puja was organised by the staff of ICL, a subsidiary of the Capital Maharaja Group. In more local news, Sri Lankan authorities said on Monday that around 75 to 100 detainees held at the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre had fled the premises following Sunday night's brawl.
Military spokesperson Brigadier Ravi Hera told Newsfirst that around 25 of the escapees had surrendered themselves to the Sri Lanka Army checkpoint positions of the Somavatiya and Kandakadu Road. The brawl took place between two groups of detainees at the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre on Sunday night. One injured detainee and one Sri Lankan Army soldier were admitted to the Polonnaruwa General Hospital. Military spokesperson Brigadier Ravi Hera told Newsfirst that several detainees had attempted to approach the armory at the premises and that escalated the brawl. Military spokesperson Brigadier Ravi Herat said Sri Lanka Army personnel attached to the 9th Field Regiment Sri Lanka Artillery who were assigned to the security detail of the armory had foiled the attempt and the armory of the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre was secured by the Sri Lanka Army.
People who come here are long-time addicts. They come here based on court orders. In the first 3 months, these detainees are under immense pressure. Because they are detoxing, they tend to become violent and pick fights with other detainees and the staff. They have caused damages to several buildings. We cannot really estimate the cost of the damages as they are still inside. The windscreen of a bus at the rehabilitation centre has been destroyed. Out of 547 detainees at the camp, we have 302 detainees under our custody. Another group of detainees are on the other side of the camp. Apart from that, 50 to 60 detainees are getting apprehended at roadblocks. We can only reveal the proper situation after analysing the current situation. Moreover, 5 injured persons have been admitted to the Polonnaruwa hospital. One of them is a soldier. They have minor injuries. As of now, the situation is peaceful. A special operation conducted by the Navy in coordination with the Police Special Task Force and Police Narcotics Bureau of Hambantota led to the interception of a local fishing trawler carrying over 300 kilograms of heroin worth over 6,000 million rupees. Navy personnel arrested 6 suspects on the 5th of November 2022.
The drug-carrying trawler and the suspects were brought to the Galle harbour this morning. Meanwhile, Commander of the Naval, Vice Admiral Nishanta Ulugethanna, also arrived at the Galle harbour to inspect the consignment. The special operation was mounted by the offshore patrol vessel SLNS Vikrama II, based on a coordinated intelligence operations of the Police Special Task Force, Police Narcotics Bureau and Navy Intelligence. Subsequent search led to the recovery of 300 packages of the substance stuffed in 12 sacks which had been concealed in the trawler. Thus, the Navy nabbed 6 locals aboard and the fishing trawler used for this illegal act on the 5th of November. Moreover, the Navy and Police STF held a dinghy which is suspected to have been made ready to fetch the stock of narcotics from mid-sea and arrested 3 males and 1 female suspect involved in the land network of this racket in an operation mounted off Nilvela and its beach area on the 6th of November. Including the latest seizure, the Sri Lankan Navy has held drugs with a gross street value of 22.5 billion rupees during operations in 2022.
Sri Lankan cricket star Danushka Gunatilaka will remain behind bars after being charged with sexually assaulting a woman in Sydney's eastern suburbs during the T20 World Cup. Gunatilaka unsuccessfully applied for bail in Downing Centre Local Court on Monday in a hearing that was closed to the public. Australian police had been granted a suppression order restricting access on what could be reported about the 31-year-old's alleged crimes. He faces 4 counts of sexual intercourse without consent allegedly committed over a 2-hour period at Rose Bay on November 2nd. Danushka Gunatilaka appeared in the Downing Centre by audio-visual link from Surrey Hills Police Station. He was handcuffed and wearing a grey t-shirt with blue jeans. Danushka Gunatilaka was arrested at a hotel in the Sydney Central Business District as he and teammates were preparing to depart the country after crashing out of the T20 World Cup hours earlier. Meanwhile, the Executive Committee of Sri Lanka Cricket decided to suspend the national player Danushka Gunatilaka from all forms of cricket with immediate effect and will not consider him for any selections after being informed that Gunatilaka was arrested and charged with sexual assault of a woman in Australia. Furthermore, Sri Lanka Cricket will take the necessary steps to promptly carry out an inquiry about the alleged offence, and upon conclusion of the aforementioned court case in Australia, steps will be taken to penalise the said player if found guilty. Sri Lanka Cricket wishes to emphasise that it adopts a quote-unquote zero-tolerance policy for any such conduct by a player and will provide all the required support to the Australian law enforcement authorities to carry out an impartial inquiry into the incident. President Ranil Wickremesinghe will address the COP27 conference on climate change on Monday.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe left the island on Sunday for Egypt to participate in the COP27 conference on climate change, which is scheduled to be held from the 6th of November to the 18th of November in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. President Wickremesinghe is scheduled to address the conference on climate change issues in Sri Lanka and around the world on the 7th and 8th of November. Concurrently, President Wickremesinghe will attend the Global Food Security Forum and the World Leaders Forum. President Ranil Wickremesinghe met with United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres upon his arrival in Egypt in Cairo on Sunday. The President briefed the Secretary-General on the government's plan on the national environmental policy.
Is the appointment of a national committee to delimit local government divisions a ploy to postpone the election? Bimal Ratnayaka expressed his opinion about this at a party meeting of the NPP held in Padiyathalava.
දැන් ඡන්දයක් තිබ්බොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? ආයෙක කතා දෙකක් නැහැ. හේදෙනවා.
What will happen if there is a vote now? That is why they are trying to postpone the elections. Should we agree with that? There were 4,000 to 5,000 Pradesh Sabha members, but who made it 10,000? It was Ranil Wickremesinghe. In 2018, however, a delimitation commission like this ran for about a year and spent millions, and now after becoming the president and because he will lose the elections, he is trying to reduce this after 3 years. Even to reduce, we need to spend about millions. For those demarcations are for commissions and individual discussions.
දෙන්නෙමේ. පලාසභා ඡන්දෙන් නෙමෙයි. පාර්ලිමේන්තුව මිනිස්සු ඉන්නේ ගහලා පන්නපු එක. රටක් එහෙම කරන්න පුළුවන්.
In your weather update for today, the Met Department says that many areas across the island may experience rain or thunder showers even today. The department forecasts that some places might receive even more than 75 millimeters of heavy rain.
The Department of Meteorology say that foggy conditions can be expected in some areas of the central, Sabaragamu, Uva and western provinces and Gaul and Matara districts in the morning. There is also the probability of rough seas risk through the coastline from Kandakadu through Mana to via Putlam from time to time. The Department of Meteorology urges people to take necessary measures to minimize the risks caused by temporary strong winds and lightning that may occur with thunderstorms. Meanwhile, landslide warnings issued to 7 districts continue to be in effect. Those districts are Kandy, Badulla, Kegol, Kurunegala, Matale, Monaragala and Nuwara. Among them, red notices were issued to the Ududumbara and Gangawatakorale divisional secretariats in the Kandy district.
State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya says that public service graduates are to be recruited for vacancies in the Customs, Excise and Inland Revenue departments. These recruitments will be made through a competitive examination conducted with the approval of the Cabinet and the Public Service Commission. Currently, 773 vacancies exist at Sri Lanka Customs, 434 vacancies in the Inland Revenue Department and 331 vacancies in the Excise Department are vacant. In more local news, the fishing community of Tangol demand the fuel quota to be increased, similar to that of three-wheelers.
Fishing boats and around 100 small vessels are engaged in fishing activities centered on the Tangol Oruvella fishing pier. The number of fishing families depend on this exceeds 500. Amid the fuel crisis, these fishermen are facing many inconveniences. They point out that the amount of kerosene they receive through the rationing system is not sufficient to engage in their trade.
News First with the people.
In some news from the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is to address world leaders for the first time at the COP27 summit since becoming Prime Minister.
Sunak is making his first outing on the international stage in Egypt after becoming Prime Minister last month. He will unveil more than 200 million euros in funding to protect forests and green technologies in developing nations. He arrived in Sharm el-Sheikh on Sunday night and will join other world leaders at the UN summit, including US President Joe Biden and France's Emmanuel Macron. He reversed a decision not to attend COP27 earlier this week after a backlash from opposition MPs and campaigners. He initially declined the invite as he said he was too busy preparing the November budget.
In some news from Ukraine, Mayor of Kyiv has told his residents to be prepared to leave the city if there is a total power loss.
In recent weeks, millions of Ukrainians have intermittently been left without electricity and water as Russian airstrikes target vital infrastructure. Rolling power cuts are also in place to avoid overloads and allow for repairs. Some 40% of Ukraine's energy system has been damaged or destroyed by Russian attacks on power plants and lines. Zelensky has warned that Russia could be concentrating forces and means for a possible repetition of mass attacks on our infrastructure, energy in the first instance. The Geneva Conventions, which outline humanitarian standards for treatment in war, state that attacks should not be carried out against civilian objects. Speaking on Ukrainian television, Mayor Klitschko branded Russia's targeting of infrastructure as terrorism and genocide.
US President Joe Biden and ex-President Donald Trump held dueling rallies as the election to reshape Congress enters its final campaign day.
Biden and Trump made their last-minute plea to voters in New York and Florida, respectively. Momentum has shifted recently towards Republicans, who are trying to wrestle both chambers from Democratic control. They are favorites to win control of the House of Representatives, but the Senate is a toss-up, polling suggests. Winning one chamber would severely hinder President Biden's legislative agenda. With the campaign in its final day on Monday, his party is braced for losses, even in parts of the country where Democrats usually do well. Trump also continued to say that he may run for president again in 2024, telling voters to stay tuned for his rally on Monday in Ohio. Polls suggest that Democrats are likely to lose their majority in the House of Representatives. Control of the Senate will probably rely on the results of extremely tight races in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Nevada.
Sri Lanka cricket team returned to the island early on Monday after crashing out of the ICC T20 World Cup in Australia.
Sri Lanka managed to win only 2 out of the 5 games that they played in the Super 12 round of the ICC T20 World Cup in Australia and failed to qualify into the semi-finals. However, based on the performance during the 2022 campaign, Sri Lanka qualified for the 2024 edition.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Lunchtime News here on TV1. For more details on these stories, you can log on to our website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. For the Newsfirst team, I've been Senator Sena Naik. Take care and stay safe.
Reaching out to the fallen, sharing the pain and suffering, standing with those in tears of despair.